Welcome to Charter Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. We are joined today by Hilda Solis. She is a member of the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles County. I want to speak about a fifth grader out of LAUSD. The day after the election, she told her teacher, people really don't like us. And that was in connection with the presidential election. She, a Latina student. These are very difficult times for our Latino neighbors.
Right, and for anyone who's an immigrant, because I don't think it's just a direct attack against Mexican students, but it's really a whole group of people: Muslim Americans, African Americans, LGBTQ. We've seen a heightened, how could I say, level of discrimination and misuse and stereotyping of people, and this came before the election, during the election, and then after the campaign, when we realized that Trump would now be our president-elect. And
you have received letters from students. You have visited students. What are they saying to you?
They're very disturbed and distressed, and I don't blame them. In fact, in my district, we had about 7 of our high schools, secondary schools, that walked out right before Thanksgiving. It was a peaceful demonstration, and it was one to say, look, what are we going to do? My parent is out of status. They don't have documents, but I was born here. Are you going to tear my family apart? Are you going to put me in a foster care system? What's going to happen to me? Where can I go? And they were distraught. And it wasn't just high school students. I also heard community college students, LA Trade Tech. The superintendent of the schools there, chancellor there, told me also that they have been receiving a lot of calls from students that are DACA students.
And let's talk about that. President Obama passed the Deferred Action Program through executive action in 2012. That executive action, because it is such, can be reversed by a different president. We have 750,000 undocumented applying for the DACA program.
That enrolled in the program throughout the country. And about, I would say, 412,000 are in the state of California, and about 70,000 that we know of are registered here in LA County.
What prevents, if anything, the administration in Washington from just simply going to this 750,000 list, getting their name, address, social security numbers?
It's there.
They
have it. They have it because part of the program was to comply with the program. You had to go through a rigorous evaluation, and you also had to go through criminal background checks. So these are not criminals. These are people that are either working. They were given a 2-year work permit and were allowed to also attend college. And the purpose was to look at individuals through no fault of their own that came to this country, maybe because they were brought here by their parents or someone else, and know no other country except this one.
But I remember I've spoken with you and others about there was some fear and trepidation when DACA passed by those that were worried about giving their information, because once they gave their information, the government would have the information. But there were promises made.
There was a trust, yes.
But it's not legally binding. I mean, even though the president said we're not going to use this to deport you.
Well, I'm hopeful that we can change
and that was the prior president.
I hope we can change the mind of the president-elect, and I think he's somewhat backtracking. He's saying now that he wants to go after criminals. DACA students are not the criminals. And you know, so you got to separate that. And I think what's really important is that we let the voices of these young people be heard. And I believe that there will be a champion. I know that Senator Lindsey Graham is proposing to put a piece of legislation forward with Senator Durbin to say to President Trump at the time, look, don't touch this program. It's working. These people are contributing billions of dollars to our tax system and our economy right now.
The challenge that President Trump would have is during the campaign, he could not have been clearer on this specific point. He said he wants to repeal DACA. I mean, it wasn't this kind of generic, I want to look at immigration. He said those words.
Well, I think like anyone else, once you get into a governing position, politics, campaigning is one thing, but once you get there and you arrive and you see the facts, and hopefully good, reasonable people around him will give him the right information, including businesses, because businesses are the ones that are going to be hurt the most. How many of these individual family relatives work in our industries, whether it's in factories, manufacturing, or IT? You see DACA students and others representing us in very, how could I say, lucrative positions right now.
And let's talk about some of those DACA students, because we know that here in California, 61,000 of them are in our community colleges.
Mm-hmm.
10,000 of them are in our CSUs, and almost 4,000 at our UCs.
Right.
Now, the chancellors of those systems have indicated they will not participate, cooperate with the federal government as it relates to immigration. But that brings up a whole host of issues. Federal funding. Remember, in the 1960s, the federal government used federal funding to force desegregation.
Right.
Couldn't President Trump use the same carrot?
Well, I think he might, but I think what we need to look at in terms of where we are in Los Angeles County, and we're very progressive here, we want to care and make sure that people are safe, is that we can also help provide protections and agree not to provide information to the federal government. And we have to really determine what happens once he takes office, and how that's going to be carried out. I hope that he doesn't do that as one of his first actions, that he gets rid of the program, because I really think it would be in the wrong direction. In fact, there are over 200 presidents from prestigious colleges and universities who have sent him letters telling him, no, do not touch this program. It is working, and there's proof and evidence to show that. And if you got rid of it, I think in the 4 years forward, if you were to get rid of it, you would see a loss of about $9 billion right away. That these people are contributing potentially, because they're higher level educated individuals who are working, and they're providing taxes, and they're playing by the rules, and they didn't get in because they had a criminal background. They had to go through all that previous screening and vetting. And to take that away, I think would be a shock.
When we talk about criminal backgrounds, one of the big issues has been how local law enforcement interacts with federal immigration agents. And we know that in reality, counties have a lot of handling and responsibilities for those in jails. I mean, we've talked about sanctuary cities, but they don't really have jails. It's really sanctuary counties where we should be focused.
Well, we have, and I think to his credit, our sheriff, Jim McDonald, agreed with us 2 years ago to get rid of 287G, and that's where you would have sheriffs collaborating with ICE agents. They no longer can come into our jails unless they have a serious, how could I say, a warrant or something to obtain that individual for deportation. But all that has to be vetted by both parties, by the sheriff. The sheriff has to also agree to give any of that very serious information. So that person has to really have a very egregious background.
What we know, though, is that President Trump, that he is very concerned about sanctuary cities. He talks about the Steinley case out of San Francisco, the girl that was murdered by someone who had been deported 5 times. And so he has, again, used this issue of sanctuary cities very strongly. And so how does a county navigate around that? Well,
I think what we're going to be looking at, and I'm hoping that we have the support of the board, is to provide assistance through looking at working with philanthropic groups, with the mayor of Los Angeles, and also with the community foundation, philanthropic groups, as well as with Mike Fuhrer, to talk about, city attorney, about how we can come forward with raising money, for example, both from the city and the county, as well as philanthropic private money, to put up funding to help provide for legal representation attorneys. So part of it is to lawyer up and to help those people, the DACA and the DAPA, the parents of these individuals.
DAPA. We can talk about that next time. Her name is Hilda Solis. She is a member of the Board of Supervisors in Los Angeles County. My name is Brad Pomerance. We're coming to you from the San Gabriel Valley on Charter Local Edition.